we are again, we're going to be doing, our doctor actually put a rec in for sinuses as well. So we still have Mr. Wong here. We still, double ID him earlier. Got his full name, his birthday, just to make sure that we are still working the same patient. But our doctor did ask for sinus images. So we're going to do almost the same ones. They're a little different variations from our cranium to the sinuses. But we'll start with the lateral again. I already prepped and cleaned our Bucky here, so it's still clean. So we're going to go ahead and start. So Mr. Wong, the only difference now is that we are going to be 8x10, so we are just looking at the sinuses. So starting with the lateral, the paranasal sinus, so we're looking at the frontal sinus. Again, we are detented at 40 inches. Central ray is going to be horizontal, so we just want to make sure that we're good. We're going to set a technique about 60 at 10 to 15 mass. So let's go ahead and get started. So Mr. Wong, go ahead and can you turn your shoulder a little bit and go ahead and place your chin there. So center is horizontal and perpendicular between 1/2 inches posterior to the outer canthus. Still, we are the interpupillary line is still going to be perpendicular to the IR. And for this image, we could use a cone since we are just looking at the frontal sinuses. We don't need the whole cranium. But for this method, we're just going to be looking at that. So go ahead and close your eyes. I'm just going to bring his head down a little bit just so we're parallel. He's going to turn his head towards me a little bit. There we go. Like I said, the outer canthus is going to come forward a little bit. Make sure we are again, since we are just looking at frontal sinus here, we can go ahead and collimate down and bring it in a bit. Like I said before, we could use a cone. We're going to go ahead and place our Parker marker here, make sure we're at anatomy. His left side is down. So we'll go ahead and put our left marker. Again, 60, about 10, 15. I'm going to ask Mr. Wong to just go ahead and hold his breath. Mr. Wong, hold your breath. X-ray. You can relax, Mr. Wong. So we would run this IR. So in the meantime, we'll get ready for our PA axial Caldwell. So we're looking at the ethmoidal frontal and ethmoidal sinuses. Our central ray is going to be horizontal and centered to the IR. So let's go ahead and start positioning our patient. So Mr. Wong, go ahead and stand up for me. Since this is PA, I'm going to fix the shield here. Go ahead and take a seat again, Mr. Wong. So typically for this projection, we would have a grid tilt. Since we can't do that, we are just going to tilt his head back 15 degrees from the X-ray, make sure the OML is perpendicular. So let's go ahead and get you a little closer, okay? We're going to tilt your head back. And what we're making sure is that our OML is perpendicular. So here, so we look pretty good. So we're going to just rest his chin, just like that. And our central ray will be exiting the nasion. So I can use my IR to kind of give me an idea of where I need to come up higher or not. That looks good there. Just open up the position a little bit. It's good. So for our technique for this here, we're looking at about 70 at 15 mass. So again, just making sure that our OML is perpendicular. Center A is good. We're exiting the nasion. So Mr. Wong, go ahead and just hold your breath. X-ray. You can relax. Yeah, so the next one. So we'll run this image. So our next image is our parietal canthal waters. We're looking at the maxillary sinus. Go ahead and so again, we're perpendicular. This one's we're gonna actually have to hyperextend his chin up higher to get to a 37-degree angle, and we want his mental meadow line perpendicular to the IR. So when we do that, his mid-sagittal plane will actually be perpendicular. So we're actually going to be resting his head on his chin. So go ahead and take a seat again. So let's go ahead and get nice and close. Go ahead and I'm going to move your chair forward for you. So 37 degrees is quite a bit. So we're actually going to rest it right on the IR. So his mental meadow line is going to be perpendicular. So we got to make sure that's nice and perpendicular. That'll give us our 37-degree angle. And central ray is going to exit the canthon, which is right in between the nose and the mouth. So again, kind of using our IR to get a good idea where we're at. That looks good right there. Up a little bit. And again, for this technique, we're going to be about 80 at 20. So Mr. Long, let's see, just want to make sure again that we're perpendicular. It's good. Hold your breath. X-ray. Okay. Mr. Long, go ahead and take steps. Go ahead and stand up. We're going to kind of readjust you here. 40 inches gets a little tight, so you can always move your tube back just to keep the patient from knocking into it. Just make sure that you tent back at 40. Go ahead and reposition his shielding here. Since now he's going to be AP. Okay, just want to go ahead and take a seat. So again, just like before, we're going to put our patient in a little bit of a precarious position. So we just want to make sure that we're set. We've got our technique set at 85 at 20. We want to kind of have our two kind of semi-position. So our central ray is going to be horizontal, perpendicular to the IOML. And the central ray enters approximately three-quarters anterior to the level of the EAM. So about here. Once we turn bring them back, we'll kind of see that. His sagittal plane is going to be perpendicular to the IR, and his IOML here will be parallel to the IR. So for this one, we're looking at the ethmoidal and sphenoidal sinus. Okay, so Mr. Wong, you ready? And then tilt your head back. Go a little farther. And kind of scoot you a little forward, okay? Just scoot you a little farther back. Again, we want to make sure IOML is parallel to the IR. So we're going to go ahead and bring it a little farther. So So that looks good there. Close your eyes, Mr. Wong, that's bright light. So about 3/4 interior. We're just going to kind of center in here. Looks good again. You want to put a marker down, indicating the correct side. And again, Mr. Wong, go ahead and just hold your breath. X-ray. Go ahead and relax. So that's all. Those are all the sinus projections that we're going to be doing. So now we'll go and make sure that all our projections are good, and we'll evaluate them and make sure that we didn't miss anything. Thank you. Now that we have finished our projections of the sinuses, we'll go ahead and critique our images and kind of go over our criteria for those. Starting with the lateral, obviously we still want to make sure that we have no rotation or tilt, and that's always demonstrated by the superimposed orbital roofs, greater wings of the sphenoid, superimposed mastoid regions, and EAM. So here we have the EM, mastoid regions are superimposed, orbital roofs are superimposed. But the criteria for the sinuses is that we have all 4 sinuses in view. So starting with the frontal sinus here, the sphenoid sinus here, ethmoid, and the maxillary sinuses there. So again, we want to make sure that we have all 4 sinuses in view, and it's not necessary to have the whole cranium. Also, all we're doing is looking at the sinuses. You could use a cone for that as well, but you can always just make sure we collimate in. Again, not necessary to have the whole cranium. Moving on to our next projection, which was our Caldwell method. Again, same projection as the craniums, but here we're looking for the maxillary and ethmoid sinuses. So again, entire cranium, no rotation. Again, it's evidenced by equal lateral borders of the orbits on both sides. We do have symmetric petrous ridges shown here. There is a 15-degree angle still, so we will have the petrous line in the lower 1/3 of the orbits. What's different is that we want to make sure that we see the maxillary and ethmoid sinus. So we have that maxillary sinus here, the ethmoid sinus there. Moving on to our image that's a little bit different from the cranium is the Waters method. Again, we want to see proper collimation. We want to see the entire cranium without any rotation or tilt. And again, equal distance from lateral borders of the skull and orbits here. Difference is the petrous ridges will be projected below the maxillary sinuses, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking at the maxillary sinus, so the maxillary sinus should be nice and open there with this method here. Again, mid-sagittal plane of the head is also aligned with the long axis of the columnar field, and again that will show have no rotation. But with this one, with the Waters method for sinuses, we are looking at the maxillary sinuses there. Moving on to our SMV or segmental vertical projection. Again, no rotation, lateral borders of the skull. We want to make sure those are nice and symmetrical. But again, we're looking at the ethmoid and sphenoid sinuses of the skull. We want to make sure that the mandible is superimposed over the frontal sinus and not the ethmoid. So we get good images of the ethmoid and sphenoid sinus there. So those are our 4 projections for our sinuses and our criteria for each one of those.